Since childhood, Raymond's father was the most important person in his life. He not only respected and loved his father, but considered him his idol and role model. His father, a neurosurgeon, spent a lot of time at work. Raymond missed him, and every day spent together was a real holiday for the boy. Like his father, Raymond loved fishing and soccer. As he grew older and began to think about his future profession, he also became interested in medicine. The only difference was that Raymond ultimately became a surgeon instead of a neurosurgeon. When Raymond's mother died, he was only 11 years old. Since his father took a month-long vacation to be with his son, fearing for his psychological state, it was easier for Raymond to process his grief. Raymond had a best friend, Bill, who was also from a single-parent family. Bill's father had died when he was only 3 years old. The boys were already friends, and now they were united by similar life circumstances. As time passed, after Raymond's mother's death, Bill began to scare his friend by saying that his father would bring another woman into the house who would treat Raymond badly. But time went by, and his father didn't bring anyone home. Raymond grew up and began to be interested in girls himself, but no stepmother appeared in their house. One day, Raymond decided to ask his father directly why he hadn't remarried. "I don't need to," Andrew said simply. "There could only be one woman in this house, your mum, and there will never be any others here." "Dad, but you're still very young. I'd understand if you wanted to live with someone." "Thank you, son. But that's my decision." When Raymond was 16, he fell in love. A new girl, Mary, joined their class. He constantly thought about her and tried to bring her chocolates and small gifts. The girl reciprocated his feelings. Raymond was happy and decided to invite Mary to his house to meet his father. His opinion was very important to him, but he didn't expect what would happen. One evening, he asked his father when it would be convenient to meet Mary, and on which evening it would be better to invite her. At that moment, the man was reading someone's medical history. Suddenly, he looked at his son. "What girl? What are you talking about?" Andrew asked, irritated and surprised. "Dad, I told you I have a new girl in my class and we're friends. I like her a lot. I wanted you to meet her." "Raymond, listen to me very carefully and remember what I tell you. No girls until you get an education. No girls. They'll distract you from your studies, and you must study hard and get a proper education if you plan to become a doctor worthy of your father." "But—" "No buts. I've told you my opinion." Raymond was shocked. He never expected his father to be so rigid and categorical, and he didn't understand how his father could object to his friendship with Mary. For the first time, Raymond felt deeply hurt by his father and wanted to cry at the injustice. He called his friend and explained the situation. "Listen, this is nonsense." Bill was indignant. "I don't understand his position. She's a normal girl. Why can't you spend time with her? Maybe he was in a bad mood and you just caught him at a bad time. Try again another day." "Yeah, maybe." "Dad's planning to open his own clinic now. He's all caught up in business and worry. Okay, I'll try another day." A week later, Raymond brought up his girlfriend again. His father's reaction was even worse than before. "I don't understand. Are you kidding me? I've explained my position to you clearly. Why are you asking me again? What didn't you understand the first time?" "I thought maybe you were preoccupied or upset before, and that's why you said no. Dad, tell me, why can't I be friends with a girl? I mean, it won't affect my grades." "Because it's just the beginning. Right now, friendship with her doesn't affect your studies. But if you get more serious, then believe me, it will affect you very much." "But you haven't even met her. What if you like her?" "I don't need to meet her. I won't change my position. I advise you to think seriously about your future, not about girls. You'll have plenty more, believe me." "I thought we were friends and I could trust you," Raymond said, disappointed and barely audible. "It's precisely because I'm your friend that I advise you to focus and start preparing for university. And don't you dare take offence at me." A week after this conversation, Raymond and Mary quarrelled. He told her that he couldn't invite her to his home because his father was categorically opposed. Mary, of course, took offence and stopped communicating with Raymond. The boy took this quarrel hard. After school, Raymond entered medical university. There were many girls in his course, and he didn't pay attention to them, remembering his father's admonition. But in his third year, he did fall in love. It was with his classmate's sister, whom he met at a student party. This time, Raymond fell in love more seriously than he had in school. He thought about Leela all the time and started skipping lectures to meet his beloved. This went on for over a month. Then Raymond's father received a call from the university, informing him that his son was skipping lectures. That's when it all began. Andrew had never yelled at Raymond before, but today Raymond didn't recognize him. It felt as if this wasn't his father at all. He hurled hurtful words, accusing Raymond of being selfish and ungrateful for everything he had done for him. "Who am I going to leave the clinic to? Who? I opened this private hospital with such difficulty, where I can perform the most complicated operations. Do you have any idea what it took for me to get all the permits and approvals? Do you understand what I'm asking you? I've just paid off all my loans, and I'm only now starting to make a profit on the clinic. I was hoping my son would succeed me. How can I leave you the clinic if you don't want to study? You only have girls on your mind, instead of focusing on your education. It's appalling. I'm disappointed in your behaviour and your attitude towards your future and towards me. This is sheer ingratitude on your part." Raymond felt a mix of offence, hurt and shame. On one hand, his father was right. Raymond had indeed neglected his studies slightly. On the other hand, he longed for a normal relationship with a girl. He wanted to have a partner. All his classmates had girlfriends, and only Raymond was alone at parties. There was no point in trying to explain this to his father. He wouldn't even listen. "Dad, I'm a young man, after all, and I have certain needs," Raymond told his father, embarrassed. "You don't need a permanent relationship for that, much less skip lectures," Andrew replied calmly. After this conversation, Raymond decided to avoid further quarrels with his father and devoted all his spare time to studying. He graduated from the university with honours, completed a 2-year residency, practised for a year in the regional hospital, and only then joined his father's clinic. To be fair, Raymond turned out to be a talented surgeon and quickly gained recognition in the medical circles of his city. Envious people attributed his fame solely to his father's influence. However, after a series of high-profile successful surgeries, they were forced to acknowledge that the family name and his father's clinic had little to do with it. The young man was genuinely talented. 5 years passed. Raymond worked successfully in the clinic, with his operations scheduled months in advance. Andrew was proud of his son and rejoiced that he had influenced Raymond in time. He was convinced that it was thanks to his firmness and persistence that Raymond had become a top-class surgeon. During all this time, Raymond didn't even attempt to build relationships with women. He had a couple of casual girlfriends whom he occasionally visited overnight, but nothing serious was in the young surgeon's plans. Paradoxically, he had no feelings for anyone. There was no love or passion, only physiological needs and nothing more. But one day an unusual event occurred at their clinic. A young nurse named Nora joined the surgery department. Raymond, already the deputy head of the department, hadn't yet had the chance to meet the new girl. Today Raymond was on duty, and Nora was also starting her first night shift. A woman was brought to the clinic by ambulance with an acute attack of appendicitis and was being prepared for surgery. Raymond was asking the patient standard questions to determine if she had any allergic reactions to medications. At that moment, Nora approached them. She placed her hand on the woman's abdomen and confidently said, "Dr. Minns, this isn't appendicitis. She might have an ectopic pregnancy." Raymond was stunned. He turned to the nurse and asked in surprise, "By what symptoms did you determine that?" "By none. It's just what I feel." "My dear, you don't diagnose based on feelings. You need to diagnose accurately, following established rules and protocols for examining a patient." "But you didn't really examine her. You accepted the ER diagnosis." Raymond couldn't tolerate such a blatant accusation of unprofessionalism. Who are you to question my diagnosis? I examined the patient. I didn't just accept the diagnosis," he fumed. "Don't yell at me. An ectopic pregnancy is easily mistaken for an appendicitis attack. Just listen to me and double-check so we don't lose the patient," Nora parried, calm and composed. "Alison," Raymond called loudly to the head nurse, "have the patient's tests been done?" "Yes, Dr. Minns, I have them right here." A startled Alison hurried to the doctor. Raymond examined the tests and looked at Nora in surprise. He had to admit, she was right. "How did you guess about the ectopic pregnancy?" he asked again. "Dr. Minns, let me tell you later. We're wasting time," Nora replied as calm as before. The operation was successful, but Raymond couldn't shake off the fact that a nurse had managed to diagnose the patient without examination, while he, an experienced surgeon, had almost missed it. Fatigue was clearly taking its toll. He had performed 2 serious multi-hour surgeries the day before and should have rested, but he had volunteered to cover for a colleague whose wife was in the maternity ward. Still, there was no excuse for a doctor. He changed his clothes and went to the nurse's room, but Nora wasn't there. Raymond walked down the ward corridor and suddenly heard Nora's voice. "Don't worry so much. Dr. Minns is a talented surgeon. He will do everything well," she reassured a woman who was about to undergo surgery. "Let me help you a little. Lie down on your side." Raymond peered into the room and saw Nora running her hand over the patient's lower back. He observed for a couple of minutes until the girl suddenly looked up sharply and noticed him. She continued rubbing the woman's lower back until she fell asleep. Then Nora stepped out into the corridor. Raymond remained standing by the door. "Tell me, what were you doing just now?" Raymond asked sternly. "Helping a woman sleep. She has severe pain in that area. Unfortunately, medication doesn't help, and her operation isn't until the day after tomorrow," Nora answered calmly and without fear. Raymond was amazed by her composure. It seemed the girl couldn't raise her voice at all. She had a beautiful, peaceful voice that even calmed Raymond, making his tiredness seem to recede. "Dr. Minns, you need to rest. Would you like me to make you some delicious tea?" Nora offered. "I can also tell you how I determine diseases." "Let's do that," Raymond agreed readily. He followed her down the corridor to the residence room, sat in a chair, and watched Nora brew some herbal tea. The nurse placed the cup on the table and Raymond inhaled the incredible aroma. "What kind of tea is this? I've never tasted it before." "It's a herbal tea. It calms and relieves fatigue. You need it. Drink it now. You'll feel better soon. But you should get some sleep," Nora said thoughtfully. "Thank you. In the meantime, tell me about your talent. How did you determine it was an ectopic pregnancy?" "I've had this ability since childhood. Back then, of course, I didn't realize how to use it or that it was an unusual trait, my gift. But I learned over time. Unfortunately, very late." Nora's voice became even quieter as she lowered her head to hide the tears welling in her eyes. Raymond realized she had failed to save someone close to her. That was the only reason a person would react like that. "Did you lose someone?" he asked sympathetically. "All of them." "What do you mean? Everyone?" Raymond didn't understand. My dad died when I was first born. He was a victim of a car wreck. I lived with my grandmother and mum. My mum died of cancer because they identified the disease too late. I was only 11. 3 years later, my grandmother died. She had advanced coronary artery disease. It was too late to get help. You see, we lived in a village and the nearest proper clinic was 150 kilometers away. You can't travel that far every time you have a health issue. So the locals treat what they can. My grandmother was a herbalist and taught me a lot, but as often happens, her own disease was overlooked. She was sure her heart ached from everything she had experienced in life. Before my mum died, my grandma had already buried her son, my uncle. Anyway, something like that. Raymond looked at the girl, his heart overflowing with a gamut of emotions. Pain, sympathy, admiration. How could such a young woman survive so much grief in such a short life? He felt incredibly sorry for her and wanted to hug and protect her from all troubles. You are strong, Nora. Truly. Not everyone can endure so much turmoil. How did you end up in the city? I came to study nursing. I don't have the financial ability to go to university, but my desire to help people is strong, so I decided to become a nurse at least. You were right to pursue education. Medicine is a vital field. You're helping people, and that's crucial. Do you only know how to diagnose, or can you treat as well? I can relieve seizures and pain. That's what I know for sure. You see, I'm still learning and haven't fully explored my abilities yet, but I can diagnose without error. She suddenly stopped talking and looked away. You'll excuse me for interfering today. You did the right thing. You saved a person's life, and for a doctor that's the most important thing. But it seemed to me that you were angry with me. I wouldn't want you to feel negatively about me. Besides, anger and hatred destroy a person from the inside and lead to various health problems. No, it's okay. I wasn't angry. Don't worry. Raymond lied. He didn't want to upset this nice girl, although he had indeed been angry with her at that moment. They talked about other things, with Raymond asking questions and Nora answering. He listened to her and was surprised that for the first time in years it was pleasant to talk to a woman about nothing in particular, just life, work and hobbies. Nora seemed to mesmerize Raymond. He couldn't take his eyes off her. He didn't notice how morning came and their shift ended. Surprisingly, his fatigue had vanished. Nora, thank you so much for the tea. I really don't feel tired. I'm ready to work another shift. Raymond smiled. But that's not right at all. You need a full 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Soon the tea will stop working and you'll fall asleep on your feet. Nora smiled back. So, Dr. Minns, go home and get some rest. Thank you for your care, the tea and the pleasant conversation. I'll go home. He had already gotten up to change his clothes when he suddenly turned back and asked, Nora, where do you live? You don't have anyone here, do you? I don't just have no one here. I have no one anywhere, at all, not even a friend. I rent a room in one lady's woman's apartment. Nora said the address, and Raymond realized it would take her at least an hour to get home. All right, you go turn in your shift and I'll wait for you. We'll go home together. Nora wanted to object, but Raymond raised his hand, warning that it was pointless. No objections. Let's hurry up or I'll fall asleep at the wheel. They left the clinic and got into Raymond's car. As he drove her home, they talked constantly about cooking preferences, movies and books. Surprisingly, this country girl was very much like Raymond. They shared tastes in literature, films, and had similar views and priorities. Nora got out of the car, thanked the doctor for the ride, and confidently walked towards the entrance. Raymond sat in the car watching her. He realized with stark clarity that he was caught. He had fallen in love, and it was an entirely new feeling, one he'd never experienced before. This girl drew him like a magnet. He longed to talk with her endlessly, to simply sit beside her and gaze into her eyes. Above all, he wanted to protect her from any misfortune or upheaval. Raymond arrived home elated, feeling incredibly good. His father, who had returned early that morning from a conference in Italy, was home. Seeing Raymond, he immediately sensed something had happened. "Hello, son, how are you? What's going on?" "Hi, Dad. Everything's fine. Excellent, actually." "Are you in love or something?" The question came calmly, without reproach. "Well, it's time to think about family, I suppose. Well done. Congratulations." Raymond was ready to leap for joy. He had feared his father's reaction, worried that history might repeat itself with Nora. But everything was going well. His father wasn't opposed to his son's relationship. "Thank you, Dad. She's a wonderful girl. Incredible, almost otherworldly," Raymond said, recalling Nora's features. Yes, you're smitten, I see," his father observed. "It's written all over your face. Why don't you get some rest and tell me about your alien later?" Andrew smiled and went to his office, while Raymond headed to the bathroom before falling happily asleep on his bed. Raymond slept until evening, waking to a phone call from Bill, his childhood friend. "Hello," Bill's cheerful voice greeted him. "Taking a nap? Off duty? Sorry, call me when it's convenient." "No, it's fine. I've been asleep all day, anyway. What's up?" "Oh, come on. What a friend you are. It's my birthday on Saturday, remember?" "Oh, gosh, Bill, I'm sorry. It slipped my mind. I'll definitely be there." Raymond was embarrassed, having indeed forgotten his friend's birthday. "Don't worry, I'm not offended. I understand you're in a whirlwind." "You're a true friend," Raymond smiled. "Mind if I bring someone?" "Bring someone? Did I hear that right?" Bill was genuinely surprised. He knew well Raymond's issues with girls, or rather, his father's stance on his son's relationships. "Did your dad finally approve a bride candidate?" "He hasn't met her yet, but he knows I have a girlfriend and doesn't mind. He was surprised himself." "Who is she?" "She's amazing. You'll understand when you see her." "Where did you find her?" "She just joined us as a nurse in surgery. We met yesterday." "Ah, so that doesn't mean much. Are you sure she likes you? Girls are difficult to please these days. You might be getting excited prematurely, man." "No, she's not like that at all. She's from the village, and girls there are simple and kind." "Nora is the same." "From the village?" Bill clarified. "Are you sure Father will approve of your choice?" "What does it matter where she's from?" Raymond didn't understand. "The main thing is that she's a wonderful person." "Knowing your father, I have my doubts. Maybe you shouldn't mention she's from the country." "Bill, what nonsense. We're not royalty ourselves, so what prejudice could my father have? My mother also came from a village before she met my father." "Well, I wish it was so. I look forward to seeing you on Saturday at the restaurant, at 1900. Bye." Raymond said goodbye to his friend and hung up. But the doubt Bill had planted now lingered in his mind. What if Bill is right, and my father doesn't like that Nora is from the village? What then? No, it can't be like that. The main thing for him is that I should be happy. Besides, I've already graduated and made it as a surgeon. No, he will like my Nora. He entered the living room where his father sat at the table. Raymond decided to postpone the conversation about his potential bride, as he wasn't yet certain Nora would reciprocate his feelings. However, Raymond was determined. "Sleep well? Now tell me, what kind of girl has captivated my son?" His father smiled. "Dad, I think this conversation is premature. She hasn't reciprocated yet, so there's not much to discuss. But I promise, as soon as we have our first date, I'll introduce you." "All right, I'll wait." "But is she the daughter of someone I know?" Dad suddenly asked. "No. Why would you think that?" Well, your bride must be worthy of our family and from a respectable background. You understand that, don't you?" Raymond froze. Was Bill right? Would his father disapprove of his choice? To avoid tortuous speculation, Raymond decided to ask directly, "Dad, tell me honestly, is my happiness important to you?" "Of course, son. That's the most important thing." He paused briefly before continuing, "But the girl has to be a good match for you, you know." "Of course, I understand." Raymond sighed with relief. Nora definitely matched him. She was also in medicine, well brought up and educated, despite growing up in the countryside. Plus she had a unique talent related to medicine. Raymond's mind was now at ease. His father wouldn't object to his choice. The next day, Raymond arrived at the clinic earlier than usual. On the way, he stopped at a pastry shop and bought Nora a set of profiteroles. He wasn't sure if Nora liked sweets, but he had a feeling she would enjoy them. However, only Alison was in the nurse's room. "Good morning, Mr. Minns. You're early today?" The head nurse smiled. "Good morning. Hasn't the new nurse arrived yet?" Alison, fearing Nora might be fired for the incident with the diagnosis, rushed to her defence. The shortage of nurses, even in such a prestigious private clinic, remained a significant problem. "Dr. Minns, please don't be angry with Nora. She didn't mean any harm. I've already reprimanded her for that incident." "What did you reprimand her for?" Raymond asked for clarification. "Well, for interfering with that patient's case." "You scolded her for that?" "Of course. A nurse shouldn't meddle in a doctor's work." "Are you serious? We could have lost a young woman. Nora prevented that and you scolded her. You should have given her a bonus, not a reprimand." Alison was taken aback. "I thought it was wrong." "Alison, remember, our primary task is to avoid mistakes and prevent patient deaths at all costs. If a doctor makes a mistake and a nurse notices it, she must report it. Now, where's Nora?" "She's sick. She won't be in today," Alison said, sounding frustrated. Now she felt embarrassed for reprimanding Nora. "I see. What time is my surgery today?" 11:30. "OK, I'll be gone for a couple of hours, but back for the operation. Tell Kelly to prepare the patient for the specified time." Raymond turned and left. He should visit Nora and return in time. As he sat behind the wheel, leaving the clinic's yard, he realised he didn't know Nora's apartment number. He considered calling Alison, but decided against giving reason for gossip. He'd figure it out on sight. Upon reaching the right house, Raymond got out of the car and looked around. The street was empty. He confidently entered the building and began climbing to the second floor. A woman, about 60 years old, came down toward him. He thought she might know who was renting a room in the building. "Good morning. Can you please help me? A young woman, a nurse, is renting a room in an apartment here. Could you please tell me which one?" The woman gave Raymond a head-to-toe glance, assessed his appearance, and apparently decided he didn't look like a criminal. "Hello, young man. I'll give you a clue if you tell me why you need this information. She is our employee and rents a room in this building. She recently started working with us, and we don't have her exact address. She's been sick, so I wanted to check if she needs any help." The woman looked at Raymond in surprise. "Well, it's good to see chivalry isn't dead in our time. I'll tell you where your sick colleague is. Her name's Nora, right? She's in apartment 11, but she's asleep with a high fever." She paused meaningfully and added, "Let me open the door so you don't make her get up with such a fever." Raymond realised this was the landlady of the apartment where Nora lived. "I'd appreciate it." He smiled sincerely. They got to the third floor and entered the apartment. The landlady, Mrs. Banks, asked him to remove his shoes and wait while she woke Nora. Raymond stood in the hallway, waiting with slight trepidation for Nora to emerge from her room. He overheard the girl ask who had arrived, and smiled upon hearing Mrs. Banks's response. "I don't know, Nora, you know better, but he's a handsome, genuine man. There are few left like him in these difficult times. Believe me, I'm an excellent judge of character." The door opened and he saw his Nora. The girl looked, to put it mildly, unwell. Her face was pale, her hair dishevelled, and sweat glistened on her forehead. Despite her sickly appearance, she was just as charming as Raymond recalled. Seeing Raymond, Nora was visibly surprised. "Dr. Minns, what are you doing here?" "Hello. I came to check on you since you didn't come to work today." "Hello," Nora smiled weakly. "Do you visit all the nurses when they're sick?" "Only the most talented and charming ones," Raymond replied, embarrassed. He noticed a blush appear on Nora's cheeks and concluded, "She's pleased I came." He handed her a box of cakes. Mrs. Banks excused herself and left the apartment. "Dr. Minns, please come to the kitchen. We'll have tea," Nora suggested, barely keeping her balance. "Nora, are you joking? Get back to bed immediately. I'll make the tea and bring it to you. You can hardly stand." "But I feel uncomfortable," Nora protested weakly. "Oh, stop it," Raymond smiled. "Please, off to bed. I'll take care of everything." Raymond found cups, tea and sugar in the kitchen and prepared tea for Nora. He placed a cake on a plate and brought it to her. "And you?" "Thank you, I had a hearty breakfast," Raymond lied. "Please share some with Mrs. Banks, if there's any left." "Of course. I can't eat anything right now." "What's troubling you? Let me examine you," Raymond suggested, causing the girl to blush deeply. "No," she refused firmly. "It's just an ordinary cold. I'll be fine in a couple of days. Mrs. Banks will buy the necessary ingredients. And I'll prepare a decoction. I'll be all right by tomorrow evening." "Are you embarrassed by me?" Raymond asked, feeling embarrassed himself. Nora looked him straight in the eyes and asked honestly. "Honestly, yes. If you were sick and I wanted to examine you in that condition, would you like the idea?" "I don't think so," Raymond answered truthfully. He admired Nora's honesty and sincerity, qualities rare among city dwellers. "Well, there's your answer." "Nora, do you need anything? Just tell me and I'll bring it to you," Raymond offered. "No, thank you. I have everything I need." "Are you sure you can recover in 2 days?" "Yes, I know a proven method. Is there no one to work at the clinic?" "No, it's not that. I was going to invite you to a restaurant on Saturday. It's my best friend's birthday, and he'll be there with his girlfriend. I'd like you to come with me." Defending a thesis was easier than asking her out, Raymond thought. He was anxious and afraid she might refuse. The few seconds Nora took to consider seemed like hours to him. "Dr. Minns, are you sure about your invitation?" Nora asked for clarification. "Of course. What's confusing you?" "We hardly know each other, really, and you're inviting me to a friendly gathering." "Well, it's only Tuesday. We have plenty of time ahead of us. But first we should stop addressing each other so formally, or it'll seem strange. Don't you agree? We're almost the same age. How old are you?" "I'm 24. And you're how old?" "I'm a bit older," Raymond smiled. 31. "Almost the same age." Nora laughed and Raymond melted at her clear, melodious laughter. How had this girl managed to evoke such strong, unfamiliar feelings in just 2 days? He had been surrounded by many women of various ages, appearances, education levels, and temperaments, but none had ever stirred such sincere and profound emotions in him. He sat beside Nora and took her hand. "You're so wonderful. I've never met anyone like you." "I'm ordinary." "Well, almost. I think you're just seeing me differently," Nora replied, blushing once more. Of course she was delighted to hear such words from a man she liked instantly on her first day of work, when she saw him walking down the ward corridor. Nurse Kelly, standing next to Nora, immediately commented on Raymond's appearance. "That's our local Alain Delon. Handsome, isn't he?" She looked at Raymond admiringly. "Well, No one stands a chance. Unfortunately, they say he's a confirmed bachelor." "Maybe he just hasn't met his soulmate yet," Nora replied calmly. Perhaps, but don't get your hopes up. He's turned down some real beauties. The mayor's daughter was here for surgery. She tried to win him over, even came back several times after discharge, but to no avail. Raymond's like a rock." Then a thought struck her. "Listen, maybe he's one of those, not interested in women." "Kelly, don't make things up. He's definitely not one of those. If he turned someone down, it just means she wasn't the right fit. That's normal." "Oh, I don't know. There's so much gossip about his love life. It'd be fascinating to see who he finally chooses. If anyone at all." Now Nora was gazing at Raymond as he held her hand, his eyes fixed on her. The girl momentarily forgot her dishevelled appearance. Admiring eyes were far better than any mirror. Raymond's voice interrupted her reverie. "Nora, I have an operation today and I'm on duty tomorrow, but I'll visit in the evening, even if just for an hour. May I?" "Of course, I'd be glad," Nora replied, blushing again. "Is there anything you'd like? Please, don't be shy." "Some chocolate-covered prunes would be nice. I love those," Nora said, her cheeks reddening further. "Absolutely, no problem at all. I'll definitely bring you some." He leaned in and kissed her cheek. Just then, the front door opened as Mrs. Banks returned. "I'll see you tonight." He winked at Nora and left the room. "I'll be waiting," Nora smiled. Raymond practically floated to the clinic, overwhelmed with emotion. "Nora likes me too. Maybe not as much as I like her, but I have a chance, and I won't let it slip away." Near the clinic entrance, his father stood talking to the deputy mayor. Seeing his son's car, he hastily said goodbye and walked towards Raymond. "Where have you been?" Andrew demanded. "I don't understand. What happened?" Raymond asked, startled. "Why aren't you at work?" His father continued his interrogation. "Dad, what's wrong? Why are you treating me like a child? I was out on personal business. I have surgery later, but nothing urgent right now. Can't I step away if needed?" "No, you can't. It's the middle of the day." "And when I work 24-hour shifts, you're not bothered by my overtime?" Raymond countered. His father clearly hadn't expected such a response, much less his son standing up for himself. "How dare you speak to me like that?" "Normally, you're treating me like a schoolboy, forgetting I'm an adult who can make my own decisions." "I don't know what girl you're seeing, but she's clearly a bad influence. You've never spoken to me like this before." "Dad, on the contrary, she's a great influence. You're attacking me unjustly, and I'm responding. My reaction is perfectly natural." "Well, go to work. Your patients are waiting." Raymond saw his father's displeasure with their conversation, but he felt he'd done the right thing by asserting his independence. He had enough of blindly obeying his father. He'd achieved everything expected of him. Now it was time to pursue his own happiness. That evening, as promised, he arrived at Nora's house. She looked much more alert and healthy. Raymond hadn't forgotten and brought her 2 kilograms of candy. "Oh, that's so much, it'll last me a month," Nora exclaimed, genuinely surprised. "That's fine, you can share with Mrs. Banks," Raymond smiled. "How are you feeling?" "Much better, thank you." "So you're coming with me on Saturday?" You never answered. "I will," Nora stammered. "Great, I'll pick you up at 6 then. I'm overjoyed you're coming." They chatted for nearly 2 hours before Raymond reluctantly went home. On Saturday, Raymond arrived at 6 o'clock sharp. Nora was waiting for him at the entrance. When he saw her, Raymond was stunned. She wore a soft pink dress that fell just below her knees, cream-coloured high-heeled shoes and a matching purse. Nora had applied light makeup and sported a chic hairstyle. "You look stunning," Raymond exclaimed. His eyes sparkled, and Nora found his reaction very flattering. "Thank you. Mrs. Banks and I put in some effort." I don't understand. What does Mrs. Banks have to do with it? She's a hairdresser, so she did my hair. In that case, you're both brilliant. The evening at the restaurant went perfectly. Both Bill and his girlfriend Leslie liked Nora. They joked a lot and shared various stories. Surprisingly, Nora could engage in any topic of conversation. When Bill went out for a smoke, he invited Raymond to join him. Listen, she's charming. Where did you find her? I told you, at work. You don't know everything about her yet. Raymond winked mysteriously. I'll tell you later, but I can say one thing. I've really fallen in love. I've never had such feelings for a girl in my life. Congratulations. She's an excellent choice. Do you think Dad will like her? I think so. He can't help but like her. She's mild-mannered, smart, charming, and incredibly endearing. I don't know how anyone could dislike a girl like that. He's been acting weird lately. I think someone told him we've been seeing each other. Look, Raymond, you're 31, not 15. Will you stop doing what your father wants you to do? You like her, and that's the main thing. He's obliged to respect your choice, after all. Yeah, you're probably right. Not probably, absolutely right. Okay, let's go back to the girls. They're getting bored already. After dinner, the couples went for a walk along the embankment before parting ways. Raymond decided to walk Nora home, and they arrived at her house at 2 in the morning. Both were tired but happy. Raymond walked Nora to her apartment door. She opened it, turned around, and kissed him on the cheek goodbye, before quickly disappearing inside. It was the most tender and innocent kiss of his life. Raymond was happy. They had already confessed their love to each other, and he had proposed to Nora, which she of course accepted. Now it was necessary to present the bride to his father. Raymond had purposely postponed this moment to avoid frightening Nora prematurely with his acquaintance. He had honestly told her about his experiences, how his father had forbidden his relationships, first in school and then at the institute. Raymond, I don't think your father will forbid you anything now. You're an adult, an established person. There's no reason to forbid it. You sound like Bill. Raymond smiled. I'll talk to my father tonight and arrange a day for dinner together. He has a very busy schedule right now, but I realize we need to get you two together as soon as possible. The wedding is already in 3 weeks. I think it'll be fine. I'll do my best to please your dad. In the evening, Raymond drove home. On the way, he replayed the upcoming conversation with his father several times in his head, trying to think everything through. But, as often happens, it's impossible to prepare fully for an important conversation or to anticipate all possible outcomes. His father sat in the living room on the sofa watching soccer. Raymond knew that when his father watched soccer, it was better not to disturb him, especially if the match was important and interesting. What are you watching? Hi. Champions League, hi. To Raymond's surprise, his father took his mind off the soccer and asked, Are you planning on going to bed? I need to have a serious talk with you. Not yet. We can talk between halves. Yeah, I think we'll manage, smiled Andrew. 10 minutes later, when break started, the father muted the TV and turned to his son. Raymond, I have a very serious proposal for you. Raymond tensed. A premonition suggested that this conversation would not end well. Intriguing. I have something serious to discuss with you too, but you go first. I plan to open a branch of our clinic in the state capital and send you there as head doctor. What do you say? That's a tempting offer. You didn't mention you were planning to open a branch, Raymond said, surprised. I've been working on it for the last 6 months and wanted to surprise you. Your birthday is coming up. The clinic, it will be my present to you. Great! I'm really pleased, Dad. I truly am. So, are you? Sure. Who would refuse such a gift? Raymond asked, surprised. When do I have to go? The official opening is on the 15th. Which month? This month, of course. That's 10 days from now. I have operations scheduled 3 months in advance. These people signed up specifically. I can't do that to my patients. Raymond suddenly fell silent, barely audibly adding, "There's another reason I can't go to the opening." "Very interesting. What is it?" Andrew looked sternly at him. "I'm getting married on the 16th. "What? And I'll be the last to know about it?" The father became furious. "Calm down. No one knows about it yet. Well, except for me and my fiancée, of course." "You've applied at the registry office?" "Yes. That's why I know the exact date. I was just about to talk to you today. When can I introduce you?" "Don't you think you should have introduced me before you applied?" "What's the difference? I'm getting married. I've made up my mind. And now I want you to meet my future wife. I don't see a problem with the sequence of these events." "You've really changed a lot. You used to always consult me before doing anything." "Dad, I don't want to fight, but you have to admit that I'm an adult and have the right to decide for myself who I marry." "All right. When are you going to introduce the bride? What about her parents? What do they do?" "She has no one. She's an orphan," Raymond said calmly. "Is she from our town? Did her parents leave her a good inheritance?" "Dad, she was born and raised in the village and moved to our town just a few years ago. She graduated from medical school and came to our clinic to work as a nurse." "What?" Andrew jumped up from the sofa in anger. "She's a regular nurse at our clinic? Do you realize what you're doing? You've decided to embarrass me in my old age, haven't you?" "How am I embarrassing you? What did I do?" Raymond asked, genuinely confused. "Who are you? And who is she? Lord, what a disgrace. My son married a nurse from the village. It's horrifying." "She's a nurse. It's a decent occupation. And what does it matter who she is as long as I love her? For the first time in my life, I truly love someone." "Oh, I've heard that more than once. If you fall out of love with this one, it's no big loss. Just take a note that I'll never agree to this wedding. You don't even have to ask me." "Dad, I'm not going to ask for your permission or consent. I'm going to invite you to the wedding, and it's up to you to decide whether you want to come to your only son's wedding." "You wouldn't dare. If you marry this village girl, I will disinherit you." "I hasten to remind you that my mother also came to our town from the village, but that didn't stop you from marrying her." "Don't you dare compare. It was a different time then, and this is your mother, not some orphan from the village." Raymond was starting to get angry. "You know, Dad, you've always been an idol to me. I was sure I wanted to be just like you. But now I look at you and realize I'll never be like you, because I don't want to," he suddenly shouted. "I don't want my son to hate me for ruining his life, hiding behind some of my goals and desires. Yes, I can understand your concerns when I was in school, even at the institute. But now, I'm sorry, I don't understand. You care more about the opinions of others, some far-fetched status, than my personal happiness. If at 16 I could doubt my feelings because of my age, at 31 I can say with absolute certainty that I love this girl. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to marry her. No question about it. In that case, you can write your letter of resignation and pack your bags. You don't live here anymore. Go to the middle of nowhere with your fiancée." Andrew was furious. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "I hope when you realize your mistake it won't be too late," Raymond said. He stood up, visibly upset, and went to his room to pack. He took only the essentials. Entering the living room, he put the keys on the table and silently left the house, slamming the door loudly. He was on his way to Nora, struggling to understand what he would say to his beloved, how to explain his father's actions, and how to reassure her without causing offence. Nora stood in the hallway, looking at her fiancé with concern. "What's wrong? Can you explain what happened?" Nora asked, walking him to the kitchen. Raymond honestly told her everything. About the opening of the clinic, his father's proposal, his reaction to their wedding, particularly to Raymond's choice, and about the disinheritance. Nora listened in silence, her face changing occasionally as she absorbed what she heard. "Raymond, are you sure you're ready to give it all up for me?" Nora asked, her voice calm but serious. "Absolutely. Do you doubt me?" "No, I don't doubt you," Nora said honestly. "It's just that I don't want you to blame me later for the quarrel with your father, or for losing your secure life and future because of me." "Nora, my dear, I will never do that. Do you know why? Because I'm an adult who not only makes decisions but takes responsibility for them. I've made up my mind more than ever before. I've already thought of something, but I need your help. You're my future wife, so we should decide together." "Of course, I'm ready to help. What do you need?" "Nothing yet. Tell me about your settlement," Raymond asked unexpectedly. Nora shared everything she knew, answering all Raymond's questions, not understanding why he needed this information. But when Raymond began to speak, she marvelled at his idea. It was brilliant. "Nora, listen, I need to work 2 weeks by law before I'm fired. You too, by the way. Then we'll get married and move to your village. We'll open a medical centre there and help people. Me as a surgeon, you as a herbalist. I've also looked at your area and had an idea to build a sanatorium for recovery and rehabilitation after illnesses. I don't have enough money of my own, but it shouldn't be too hard to find a sponsor. I've even sketched out a business plan and made some preliminary calculations. Plus, I have connections. We can do it. Do you believe in me?" "Of course. I have no doubts that this is an amazing idea. You have no idea what you're really doing for those people who've been living there for years without qualified medical care. Several settlements will be able to come to us for help. People might even build that sanatorium for you for free." "Well, that's not quite how it works, but there's something to that idea." The next day, Raymond and Nora submitted their resignation letters. No one understood what was happening. Why was the son of the clinic owner being fired? How could this be allowed, given the number of people waiting to see him for surgery? No one paid much attention to Nurse Nora's resignation. No amount of questioning or persuasion worked on Raymond. He asked the secretary to officially register the application and said from that day, the 2-week notice period began. During all this time, his father never once tried to talk to him. After 2 weeks, Nora and Raymond left the clinic, and 2 days later they got married. There was no formal wedding. They both decided against it. They signed the papers and then went to a restaurant with Bill and Leslie. Nora wanted Mrs. Banks to come too, but she firmly refused, citing poor health. However, she gave the newlyweds a gift, a set of silver cutlery inherited from her grandmother. "Mrs. Banks, we can't accept such an expensive gift," Nora objected. "Nora, I have no use for it. I have no children or grandchildren, but you will have a memory of me." "Perhaps you'd like to come with us," Raymond suddenly suggested. "Thank you, Sonny, but I don't like the countryside, and besides, it's a long journey. I'm afraid my health won't allow it." "That's too bad. We like you very much, and it's a pity to leave you alone," Nora said, nearly crying. "No, children, I've made my decision. I won't go. I'll ask Bill and Leslie to visit you sometimes, and if you need help, you can always call them," Raymond said. Mrs. Banks nodded in agreement, but Raymond understood that she wouldn't call. She was proud, and Raymond's friends were strangers to her. She wouldn't ask strangers for help. 2 days later they packed their belongings and left for Nora's homeland. The village wasn't as small as Raymond had imagined. There were certainly 200 houses, quite a sizable community. But the house where Nora had grown up had been practically abandoned during her absence, and it was unrealistic to. Raymond quickly realized this and went to see the head man, as everyone called him. Mr. Moorhead was relatively young for such a position, about 60 years old. When Raymond told him who he was and that he wanted to open a clinic at his own expense, Mr. Morland was ecstatic. "Lord, you've heard us, haven't you?" he exclaimed, circling Raymond as if worried he might vanish into thin air. "We have just one small problem," Raymond said. "What problem, son? I'll solve all your problems." "We have nowhere to live at the moment. Nora's house is almost in ruins and winter is coming. We'll rebuild it next summer, but this winter we need somewhere to—" "Oh, my dear. What do you mean, somewhere? We've got some nice vacant houses that are well maintained. We've all been waiting and hoping for a doctor, or paramedic at least. You'll have a place to live, don't worry." "That's fantastic," Raymond said. Nora looked at her husband and marvelled at how easily he, a city dweller, got along with the villagers. From the outside, it looked as if Raymond had come home, while Nora was visiting the village for the first time. The villagers' reaction to the doctor's arrival was beyond words. People brought gifts, food, furniture, just to befriend the doctor. They were even more surprised when they learned that the new doctor was their Nora's husband. Even from neighbouring villages, guests began to arrive with gifts. The house they were given was made of logs and smelled wonderfully of pine. A week later, Raymond set up a paramedic station and started seeing patients, with Nora assisting him. Within a couple of weeks, the fame of the miracle doctor and his wife spread far beyond this village and the neighbouring ones. Word of mouth did its job, and soon even the nearest district centre became aware of Raymond. A local farmer with a large estate came to see Raymond. Raymond and Nora examined him, diagnosed his illness, and prescribed the appropriate treatment. A month later, the farmer returned to express his gratitude. "I don't need money, but I could use some help," Raymond said honestly. "I want to build sanatoriums here. I need high-quality timber, and I know you have your own sawmill. Could you help me with materials? We plan to start construction at the end of March." "Dr. Minns, what kind of question is that? Of course I'll help you. I'll give it to you at cost price. Don't even think about it." That's how Raymond found the right people and connections to realise his dream. By spring, all preparatory work was completed, permits were obtained, funds were secured, and in mid-March, construction of the sanatorium began. In early summer, Bill and Leslie revisited Raymond and Nora. They were amazed by the scale of the couple's project in the village. "Bill, you can't imagine what this village is like. I never thought I'd enjoy it so much here." "I see you've put on weight," Bill smiled. "Everything here is natural and homemade. Move in with us, you won't regret it. A dentist here will be just as valuable. You'll work at my sanatorium, you'll be priceless." "You know, I'll have to think about your offer." He paused for a moment, then asked, "Has your father called?" "Not once." "Have you called him?" "Even less so. It's a shame it turned out this way. But I agree that you did the right thing. You picked one hell of a wife. I've never regretted marrying her. And that's what counts." A year had passed since Raymond and Nora moved to the village. Life there didn't just improve, it flourished. The construction of the sanatorium and the prospect of employment for locals in the near future breathed new life into the community. People almost revered Nora and Raymond, realising that if the couple were to leave, the village would quickly wither away. Andrew was hoping his son would come to his senses and ask for forgiveness. But a year passed and Raymond did not return. He began to wonder how his son was living and what kind of wilderness Nora had dragged him into. He called Bill and asked for Raymond's address in the village. "I'm sorry to say this, but I can't keep silent. If you want to go there to quarrel with them, you'd better not. You've already offended Raymond terribly." "I have offended?" Andrew was indignant. "Yes, you have, and it seems to me that you'll regret your actions," said Bill and disconnected, but before he still gave Raymond's address. Andrew hesitated for almost a week, but eventually decided to visit his son and daughter-in-law. Upon arriving in the village, he asked a passing woman for directions to their house. "Are you here to see our doctor? Oh, he has a long waiting list. You should have called ahead. But if it's urgent or serious, Dr. Minns will see you. He doesn't turn anyone away, God bless him. If not, his wife Nora will help you. She'll relieve your pain or cure you with herbs. Such bright and kind people." Andrew listened, mouth agape. He hadn't expected to hear such praise for his son. For the sake of objectivity, he approached another person, this time a man, and asked how to find the local doctor. The man was even more effusive in his praise than the woman. He extolled the couple so much that tears welled up in Andrew's eyes. When he finally reached his son's house, he saw a line of cars and a crowd of people. Approaching, he asked if he could join the queue for the doctor, only to be told that Dr. Minns was no longer accepting patients. He only worked until 6 p.m. that day, and there were already many people waiting. "And if I have an urgent situation, will he still not see me?" The woman looked at Andrew sceptically from head to toe and said, "Well, if it's very urgent, he'll see you, of course. But we don't usually do that. We take care of our doctor. He said that's enough for today, so we'll leave and come back another time. Those from distant villages are seen first, as they have far to travel." The woman didn't finish. Raymond appeared on the threshold of the clinic, and all the people fell silent, as if they'd seen a saint. Raymond glanced at the crowd and suddenly met his father's gaze. To say he was surprised would be an understatement. He stepped down from the porch and walked over to his father. They stood there for a few seconds, just staring at each other. "Forgive me," said the father. "I am at fault." "Not just to me," Raymond said, barely audibly. Nora made her way through the crowd to join them. She was pregnant. Andrew looked at her carefully. "She really is adorable. What a fool I've been. Forgive me, children." Tears flowed from the man's eyes. Never in his life had he felt such shame. He could have lost his son, missed seeing his grandchild, all because of some misguided, unnecessary principles. Nora led her father-in-law into the house, while Raymond continued seeing patients. When the crowd dispersed, Raymond joined his father and wife. They talked almost until dawn. Raymond told his father about his plans for the sanatorium, the local people, and the wonderful nature surrounding them. "I want to help you with the sanatorium. Will you let me?" the father asked. "I'd be delighted if you'd join me." Raymond suddenly lowered his eyes and said quietly, "I've already thought of a name for it. Hope. In my heart, I hoped you would understand and come, and I wasn't wrong."